We are very happy to be here in this Congress and participate in this opening session. I am not going to speak in English. I'm going to speak in a Cuban English. It's a little different, but I'm pretty sure that you are going to understand me very well, because when the people speak from the heart, we can understand each other easily. Well, I would like to comment that this is my first day officially in India. I have just presented my credentials to the President of India this Monday, and suddenly, right after this ceremony, I took the flight yesterday. I came to Kerala. It is not by casualty, it's not a coincidence. It was planned before, because it has some symbolic sense. Kerala, I don't know if Kerala is geographically speaking, the closer point to Cuba, but by sure, is the state, the most solidarity state with Cuba in India. I would like to recognize this today on this meeting, and thanks for this resolution that now you have approved in this opening session of this conference. Well, being here in this Congress and this Tribune, it remembered me 30 years ago, the time I was in the National Secretariat of the University Student Federation in Cuba. It was difficult times. It was the beginning of the 90s. I was from 1990 to 1994 in the National Secretariat of the University Student Federation in my country. Maybe the majority, most of you were not born at that time, not yet. In these years, happened the collapse of the Soviet Union, also of the European socialist countries, the so-called socialist system, and Cuba remains almost alone in Latin America, small island, 90 miles from the US. It had a huge impact on the Cuban economy, because we lost our main partner at that time, that was the Soviet Union, the European socialist countries. We lost more than 80% of our partner countries. And the Cuban economy dropped 40% of the GDP in only 2 years. In the US, the extreme right groups, the government of the US, the Bush government at that time, they were dreaming that it was the precise moment to defeat the Cuban Revolution. They cannot imagine that Cuba could survive alone in the Caribbean Sea, 90 miles from the US, without any support from the Soviet Union. But what happened? They are still waiting. They thought that it could take days, a week, month, but the Cuban Revolution will continue fighting, will continue resisting until victory always, I can assure you. Well, but the 14 US government from January 1st, 1959 until now, they have never abandoned the idea to defeat the Cuban Revolution. It's permanent. It's part of the sense of the political classes of the US. They cannot accept the example that Cuba represents, a small island developing a socialist system in Cuba, as an example that there is a way for independence, for sovereignty system in Latin America and other parts of the world. And then started at that time to reinforce the US economical, financial, and commercial blockade towards Cuba. They started to reinforce this policy against our country. The blockade policy during the first Trump administration, and even in the coincidence with the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic, they strengthened this policy toward my people, our country. They approved more than 243 different measures in order to strangle the Cuban economy, not to have any kind of resources to affront the daily life of our people.